Welcome everybody to our monthly, usually second Saturday poetry reading. This month only, it is the first Sunday of the month, and we appreciate the flexibility of our featured reader today. And I also appreciate your flexibility of switching over to the first. That allows me to leave tomorrow for a 1 week or 10-day trip to Italy. So arrivederci after this poetry session. So we do start basically right around 11 o'clock. If you want to read, please put your name in chat. Please keep your microphone muted. Feedback is a gift, so there is my email. Those who don't know me, I'm Dan Kerr. I have the privilege of being the moderator here. So feedback is a gift, so just send me an email, danielbkerr@verizon.net. If anything that you like, anything you don't like, anything you think you can be, this can be improved. We've been doing this virtually now, Kathy, I think for about 3 years. But we're always fine-tuning. We're always getting input from our poet laureates and you as well. So please feel free to share any feedback that you have. With Richard serving as the now having passed the twig to Deborah, for purposes of our session today, Kathy is going to play the role of host. Our featured poet will be Dr. Bronson. Again, I've mentioned to you to put your names in chat if you want to read. After we do the open read, I'll announce those in groups of 3. We'll bring back Dr. Richard for an encore, and then Kathy will announce the poet that we have coming in August. This is one of several outreach programs hosted by the church. I know you're here for poetry, not for evangelization, but I will mention 3 things that the poets do actively participate in. One, we have a monthly concert program actually held in the church. And the next concert, July 8th, will be Tom Manuel from the Jazz Loft and his group Gospel Road. This will be the 4th year that they've appeared. They're a wonderful, rousing group. The acoustics of the church are magnificent, and it's a lovely venue for a concert. Also, we do this, normally it's the second Saturday of the month, so if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. But please be mindful of the fact that we do these normally it's the second Saturday of the month. We also do Native American drumming the 4th Thursday of the month as well. This comes out of the Indigenous Peoples Experience. It's a healing experience where he plays a number of drums. People sit and meditate. He takes us on a journey, and we share experiences afterwards. That's the 4th Thursday of the month. If you're not already on our Friends of the Church list and you want to get on the list to get invitations to those events, just let me know. Whether or not you're on the invitation list or not, we do once a year, we pull together in one venue the poetry and the concerts and the Native American drumming as well. This was an event, the person who conceived this was a well-known poet, many of you know, Carmen Bugan. This will be the 3rd year that we've done it, and we'll be doing it on Saturday, August 5th. That's our concert at 6 o'clock. And we have sacred readings, and you'll recognize many of the sacred readings there. The readings are all done by poets. So you'll see all the poets there standing. And then we have accompaniment by Dan Kinney, as the one on the extreme left hand with the smile and the jacket on there. He's the All Souls organist. He'll play a number of musicals. So there'll be a poem, sacred poem, followed by a musical reflection. So some of the musical reflections are on the church's urban organ, which goes back to before the Civil War. And you'll see 2 musicians in the back there. We have musical interludes from students from the university. And then also you'll see the Native American drumming. That's Dr. Rick Stadler in the back there. He does Native American drumming as well. So mark your calendars, you're all welcome. But remember, that's Saturday, August 5th, and that's at 6 o'clock. And then the last thing I'll mention is once a year, we do a 5K race and a 2K walk. Purpose of this is to celebrate the role of historical All Souls in the community. And it also is to raise funds to make the church handicapped accessible. Those of you familiar with the church know it's at the top of a steep hill. When All Souls was designed by Stanford White and built in 1896, the life expectancy in the United States was less than 50 years. So handicapped accessibility was not at the top of their mind. Church does not have a bathroom, which is a terrible inconvenience for folks. Thank God now the deli, which provides us with a public bathroom, is now reopened. But not only do we celebrate the role of the church in the community, we raise funds to make the church accessible and to put a bathroom on the property. And each year also there is a group. This was started by Sharon Doyle and Kathy years ago. It's called the Live Poet Society. So this is a group that they don't run, but they walk. They walk each year. So please mark your calendar for October 1st. We'd love to have
we speed walk, right?
Yeah, you could speed walk. You could call it that. So please consider joining us on October 1st. So with that, I welcome you, and I will turn you over to our moderator for today and the woman who brought this program to All Souls, Kathy Donnie. Kathy, over to you. You got to turn your mic on. You're getting a round of applause as well.
Hello, everyone. So we start with my reading a poem. And so I've chosen a poem that's not mine. It's by one of the greatest poets we've ever had on Long Island. And Lynn Cosmo would be 104 years old if she were still with us. She lived in West Babylon. And I wanted to pick out a medical poem because we have Richard here reading for us. And it's called Walking. The wild rose, dizzy from climbing impossible heights, gives up, stretches sideways to reach the wall under shingles, and the privet, being shorn for all its life, grows sideways as instructed. And we wonder what went wrong trying against nature once more to bend them to our will. It is too late. Like a child with a crutch, growing now, not needing it, the crutch has become part of her, impossible to walk without it. People smile, wish she could know how it feels to be whole. But the caring she receives is too much a part of her. She cannot walk without it, dare not try, in case she could. So you wonder how much is psychosomatic with people. I am so happy to introduce Richard Bronson, and sad that he 2 years of just elegant reading and wonderful poetry, and just proud to know you, Richard. I'll start with the last sentence here in front of me, which is his new book, Imperfect Knowledge, his 5th published collection of poetry, and that he has just completed his term of Suffolk County Poet Laureate. She is a graduate of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, New York University School of Medicine, and the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. He currently works at the Renaissance School of Medicine at Stony Brook University, where he is on the faculty in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology and the Center for Medical Humanities, Compassion, Care, and Bioethics. He is on the editorial board of the Pharos Poetry and is a section editor for Reproductive Biomedicine Online. Dr. Bronson has won the Poem of the Year Award of the American College of Physicians and was the recipient of the Leonard Toe Humanism and Medicine Award of the Arnold P. Gold Foundation in 2015. Wow. Congratulations, Richard. He is a member of the Board of Trustees of the Walt Whitman Birthplace and on the board of the Poetry Collective. I am very happy to introduce Richard and to hear his poetry. All yours, Richard.
Well, it's always great to be here, as I said, it's once a month. And again, it's great to also to read and have the opportunity to do a full reading. So what I decided to do, and I've done this in the past, is to divide the reading into 3 segments of different themes and tones. And the first I've titled The Months, because it was a project I established for myself to write one poem that reflected something about each month of the year. And you'll find, the first poem was written shortly after the winter solstice, the shortest day in the year. There's a little bit of maybe seasonal affective disorder or slight moodiness in it. And I'll read that. January. I have come to know the melancholy of Monday morning roads leading toward the incarceration of offices, the anvil of their hours. And I know the sadness of blue evenings as dusk passes into darkness, street lamps switching on, illuminating the long way home, I know the dark solemnity of empty houses awaiting their occupants, and the solitude of autos that carry cloistered drivers alone on night highways, each at the end of days. And I jump to March. I'm not going to do every month of the year. March. Passage. He rode on a river of steel through a cave of night. Lights of little towns winked welcome were gone, and the train sang its sorrows. Go on, they will. Go on, they will. The land fell away to a sea of dreams, while sleepers snored their hours. His face, a moon in the glass, tread a carpet of stars. Then a squall gathered at his eyes, a tempest upon his cheeks. He said goodbye to the life he had led, to those left behind. Red dawn came, and he rose from the depths of his doubts as the train sang its morning prayer. Go on, they will. Go on, they will. Go on, they will. I'm going to jump to July. This is a poem I wrote for my wife, Susan. One of our favorite places to visit is Orcas Island in the San Juan Islands in Puget Sound, north of Seattle. In the summertime, you don't want to go other times because it's raining, but the summer is just beautiful. And there's a state ferry system that takes you to the islands, and some you can bring cars on, others not. So July, Dawn Ferry at Orcas Island. You threw a jacket over your nightgown. I struggled in darkness into jeans, and we rushed onto the Widow's Walk to watch the ferry approach. Orion dominated the dawn sky, his belt a trio of stars. 2 tiers of light, silent on night water, floated towards the pier. Across the channel, firefly headlights flickered within the dark forest, racing toward the ferry slip. You stood by me, watching the gathering day extinguish the stars in tones of rose, and red madrona burst into flames. A voice announced through a loudspeaker, "Cars leaving for Lopez Island, board now." And gulls appeared, sounding the call to prayer from their high places. Heeding their command, we returned to bed, the temple of our love, tasted the power of Eros in celebration of the day.
Very nice.
I'm jumping to August. August, driving home on a late August evening. Houses catch fire in failing light as the day dies. Vacant windows, glowing embers. Night will soon extinguish the sun. Stars multiply without end, seeding the sky, and a waning moon whispers, "Gone, gone." Dark trees, full of themselves in high summer, rim the road, cry, "Remember us as we are now." I sense the long days pass, slow journey of earth round the sun toward winter's dark solstice. It has always been so. Born in the house of the fish under a new moon, I have felt the heavy pull, the highs and lows, sought solace of sleep at its ebb, obscurity of dream, and at its fullness howled abuses to the imperfect world. October. So the prompt of this poem was actually walking through a spider web, and that got the flow going, the flow. In the season of spiders, I've walked through webs, complex designs of the weavers who sleep the day away, resting from their nocturnal vigilance. It is that time when cicadas still sing, and a gibbous moon accompanies one through the night. I do not begrudge them their night work, and I have taken the vacuum to their resting places for fear of entanglement. The little ones ready to burst from the nest float on the wind toward distant places, denied their future. I have often wondered what special silk spiders would make and how a lowly worm was chosen by the Chinese for their trade. If I could wear a spider-sewn cape, the spectral blaze of stars glistening in its folds, I'd fly on arachnid wings, companion to the moon, a night traveler in the season of spiders.
Mm.
And then the last for the sequence, November, also for Susan, Thanksgiving. I awaken in soft light to thee and me, bodies conforming to each other. My breath blows gently onto your shoulder, lips touching soft skin. If I were to open my eyes onto the day, this fragile moment would pass. And I've grown aware in the space between sleep and waking of a thought, our breaths, the slow movement of air passing repeatedly, minute by minute, into and out of our lungs. We mingle in this bedroom as over the years our lives have. And I must give thanks. Now, the second part, I titled From My Family, and it's more narrative than lyrical. I'm reading narrative poems. My father was a GP in old-time doc who made house calls, and I have memories of on Sunday mornings that, we would start the morning on Sunday making house calls up in the back of the car, and then we would go to the Bronx Zoo or the planetarium or the Museum of Natural History. So Father's Day. Sudden growling of a truck broke the stillness of Sunday morning, sent a flotilla of pigeons skyward over rooftops, air filled with their cooing. These were neighborhoods smelly of grapes, trestled above front doors, where kids played stickball in the streets. We waited in the double-parked caddy, mother in the front seat, silently reading the newspaper. My brother and I playing old maid while father walked up stone steps of duplex homes guarded by concrete lions, black bag in hand. 7 days a week he worked, disregarding the biblical injunction. But Sunday afternoons he was ours, leading us past dioramas of the African belt, through museum halls of dinosaurs, or trips to the Bronx Zoo, tigers brooding their captivity, the Penguin House, and wild pony rides. Mm. The next poem, Imperfect Knowledge. And I've thought about a lot of this, and I have a poem at the end of the reading too about knowledge. My toes wriggled skeletal with the new shoes, big toes, little ones, as x-rays passed through me, no worry of Roentgens or rads. I stepped off the pedestal, laughed, and the shoe salesman smiled, said, look again if you like, and we both watched the goodness of the fit. My father, the general all-around doc, the use of x-rays too. How many chest films did he perform? Said fractures under fluoroscopy, not realizing danger of overexposure. No lead to shield his body. In the end, did it matter? Heart disease caught up with him, his 100-patient days, not cancer. After the first coronary, his face, a fractured moon, gray within the mist of a plastic oxygen tent. I thought he'd break apart, never return to us. Before the second lethal blow, I saw him in the kitchen, taking red pills from the fridge. Estrogen, he said, they tell me it's good for my heart. I'd grow breasts if I had to. Yes, I hoped then, but no, it wasn't so. So the theory was that women didn't develop coronary artery disease until after menopause, and estrogen was protective. When they gave estrogen to men, though, it promoted coronary artery disease, just not what they expected. So again, we work in imperfect knowledge and try to do our best in that knowledge.
Mm.
To his violin, for William Bronson, M.D. I found you abandoned in the attic of my boyhood home. Your broken bridge, rusting strings, a testimony to disregard. When had you last sung? In what year did he last hold you in his loving hands? Can you sing me a song of my lost father? Of the times you had together, the long dead maestro, you his prima donna. When did he last place you in your case, where you have waited in aging velvet until gently lifted from that grave resting place and I stroke your strings? If I were to raise your afraid bow, touch so lightly those strings, would you whisper why he lost interest, left you longing in your case? What was his new love that led to this estrangement? What ruled him that nothing else mattered? His music, his family. Sing me a song of my lost father, of the times you had together. Tell me his passion, whisper his secrets, that I may understand. Well, I mean, I understood. It was a lesson to me. You know, in medicine, there's all jobs is work and there's life, and how do you control the balance of both? And if you're not careful, the balance is off. And that's what happened. He loved what he did. He was masterful at it, but there were issues. I'm just switched to my mom now. Move to some things to honor her. Perfect. She snapped each bean to judge its freshness, pressed each peach, each tomato squeeze, while I looked up at the counters, walked the aisles of the A&P behind her cart. We smelled the cantaloupes, shook the honeydews, thumped the watermelons, felt the firmness of cucumbers. She sniffed coffee beans before they were ground, knew the odor of fresh fish, color of spoiled meat. She has lived her life this way, judging for herself the quality of things, what others take for granted. You sense it in her elocution, her dress, her hair, her high-heeled shoes, the refusal to wear sneakers. Now she is no longer perfect, needs an aid to help her dress. Her gait precarious, and her mind is clear. She still wears heels. It is her way, though death lurks with every fall. The next poem is called My Mother's Incidentalloma. So I have to define what's an incidentalloma. It's an incidental finding you don't expect during an examination. Then you have to deal with something, that came out of the blue. My mother's incidentalloma. I scrawled a silly face on a latex glove blown up to distract you. Smiled as we waited in a cramped exam room. You brought me here, your eyes accused, watching the heavy minutes tick by. Your doctor retired, a new one had ordered this test and that, an ultrasound to confirm his suspicion of gallstones, and there, in the right kidney, a spot. No way to know if it's cancer, best to remove it, he said. How to live with that on your mind? I suggested a second opinion. The urologist, tall, distant, white-coated as I at other times, told us your choices, the risks. We sat there in silence, thinking what could not be said. I'll never escape. What should I do? You frowned at me. Say something. You're a doctor. I thought of my father, who prided himself in his medical judgment, told his patients what to do. He'd have advised you, but I was not him. Mom, a difficult choice. I can't decide for you. All I could muster, seeking my own escape. Neither of us spoke on the drive to your place. I turned the radio on, turned the radio off, as a thought echoed through my mind. Could I advise surgery you might not survive? Week after week, I phoned. You said, I've scheduled the pre-op test. Always postponed. You've made a decision to proceed with surgery at some distant date, which never occurred. And then this is the prompt of this poem. This is amazing. I found In a sports coat of mine, the glove had blown up with the smiley face on it. I'm still saying that from this is years ago, actually.
Huh.
So now, homecoming. Homecoming. A year since her passing, so hard to return, and everything untouched, unchanged. Photos of great-grandchildren on the Kanabe baby grand, the love seat with vines entwined, silk-covered ottoman in tatters, silent grandfather clock one at a time. Her closets crowded with clothes, bags of decades-old bank statements neatly arranged by year and rubber band envelopes. A box of family snapshots, my father holding me as a toddler on his shoulder. In her bedroom, his chest of drawers, never emptied from the time she sold the house, moved to this apartment 30 years ago. The scent of his cologne still lingered. Its silk pajamas, socks, underwear, stale cigars, and clip-on paisley bow tie. And then the last poem of this segment, Lament. Lament. When men are born to suck the blood of days, and naked trees at winter's end lift their limbs in Sabbath prayer, I break the matzahs of despair. A fire of ice engulfs my heart, the Mount Aries of my mind, as I've wandered fields of loss, trapped in turmoil of remorse. Mother, in your suit of spring, teach your grieving son to sing. Father, weld your mace of light as you walk the ways of night.
Mm.
And then the last sequence titled Internship, Residency, and Beyond. And first, a Bellevue story. Everyone probably knows Bellevue is one of the oldest city hospitals, often a place of last resort for people. A Bellevue story. Marvin, you came to us out of the Bowery, limbs, skull, ribs fractured, unconscious in shock, more dead than alive. Hit and run, they said you were bumming a drink. We drilled burr holes in your fractured skull, drained your bloody subdurals. You awakened, your rib cage shattered. We tubed and trached you. You breathed for us. Alive but not well, your saga began. You survived the sepsis of your Foley catheter and the DTs. Strapped in, you raged. We knew you were healing when old habits returned. How about a smoke, Doc? I lit up a cigarette, puffed through your trach. It was your only pleasure. I lost track of you in rehab. It was your 6th month in Bellevue. Walking didn't come easy, your fractured legs, but you survived it all and left after a year. I saw you last in a meeting the following spring. Back in town from Camp LaGuardia, you were on the streets once more. They carried you in on a stretcher. I called the social workers. We're happy to see you again, in need of cleaning, but still surviving. We disinfected you, replaced your broken prosthesis, and a little of your broken life.
Mm.
Next, taking signs. Everyone knows, of course, that the commandment of Hippocrates, first do no harm. A junior resident on rotation, new to the place, first case of the day, I met the surgeon at the scrub sink. Now, gowned and gloved, we faced each other, the anesthetized patient between us. Silence ticked by to the sound of the ventilator. Well, why don't you ask for the scalpel? Surgeon said. Thank you for the case, I blurted out, but the hernia is on your side. I admitted him last night. We spoke through masks, but I could see his eyes, which broached no error. What? I'm sure you're wrong. I read my office notes this morning. The chart's over there. He signaled the circulator. Bring it over. See, left? Scalpel, I said. The knife snapped into my gloved hand. Then the thought, could he be wrong? I trust myself. Wait, I'm sure I'm right. We've got to be sure. Wake him up, surgeon, the anesthetist. Eyes. Now everyone looking at each other, wondering, judging. I watched the man awaken, still strapped down in the sterile gloves, puzzled when asked which side, then mutter, right. There was a question now, none, the surgeon said, turning to me, took spunk, but I knew I'd hesitated, almost stayed silent, and made the wrong cut.
Oh, oh my God.
Found in the street. You were dead drunk, smelling of piss, swollen toes, bursting maggot-filled socks, legs a mottled sea of cellulitis, soaks in antibiotics, a cloistering soaks in antibiotics, a sheltered week of rest, haircut, a shave, revealed a man my own age. In the intern's bright office, a clustering darkness around us, we talked past midnight, two guys in our 20s, as the city murmured through an open window, the ward of sleeping men our witness. We offered what we had, found you a place to address your addiction. For the one task required, to arrive on your own, we gave you the means, $10 placed in your hands to travel by bus out of the city, clean but not healed, $10 burning your pocket. You left our care, and I wished you Godspeed. So this was a rehab center up in White Plains, and recalled that he never arrived. And then the last poem of the reading, except for the encore, first do no harm, first do no harm. In the heady days of his education, he devoured fruit from the tree of knowledge, binged on ideas, gorged on words of biochemists, bacteriologists, pathologists, and regurgitated them, enthralled with science, a sense of infallibility. Everything seemed possible. Progress, his mantra. Yet time passed, new paradigms replacing old. Drugs he prescribed did little good. Prescriptions no benefit, if not harm. In that sea of fallacies and fashions, false compass bearings could be made. He sailed the fragile bark, fearing shipwreck on the Isle of Error. Caution, now his watchword. Thank you. Thank you.
It was wonderful, just wonderful. And I really like how you cut it into 3 distinct segments and the real focus of the change of the seasons. And it's just beautiful. It's like as if the season itself was a character in the poems. Just beautiful, starting in January, and that very touching scene in November with you laying in bed with Susan. Just beautiful. And the family narrative, oh my God, the Father's Day memories. And when I was a kid, we had one of those old family doctors, Dr. Falkenberg. The kids used to call him Knife and Fork Falkenberg because he didn't believe in Novocaine when he sewed you up, but he had stone minds. I don't know if doctors back then in their residence had to have stone minds. But and the touching poem to your father's violin, just beautiful. And your mother wearing heels and the homecoming and with the smell of your father's cologne, just beautiful. And the matzahs of this, something I'll always remember. And then just the insights on your medical career and the richness and the humanity of medicine. I think oftentimes, and I've never been, I'm a doctor of a different type. I rarely use that term, but Dr. Dan, when I look at this, and I think one of the criticisms of medicine traditionally is that the doctor just doesn't care and just doesn't feel, and just the warmth and feeling and the humanist and how you humanized all those patients, including the guy, the broken people that you did so much to repair. So just thank you for just a beautiful, beautiful reading.
Well, thank you for that summary. It brought back a flash memory, and it tells me what it was like to be a GP. There were no disposable syringes in those days. You believe this? I mean, Kathy, imagine this. No, they had glass syringes with the same reusable steel needles. And if I thought I could give a shot of penicillin, and it was either morphine or penicillin, not much else I could give, he would boil a syringe in the frying pan on the stove in his patient's apartment. So it was a different age then.
I have to say, I wondered about the Civil War because that's when they discovered the hypodermic and introduced morphine to all those poor soldiers that we turned into addicts. But anyway, And I thought they must have used the same syringe over and over and over with no clue about microbiology.
Right, that's right.
I just want to do something here. Dan, are you with
Yes.
me?
Yep, up here.
So I just would like to end Richard's tenure of 2 years of Poet Laureate and our moderator with taking everybody off mute and allowing us to just give you an applause.
Well, thank you.
I start.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Bravo.
I don't need the applause, but thanks.
I would have loved to have you as a doctor, and I love having you as a poet.
Good idea.
I
Good
figured how
thought.
to turn it off. Okay, we're good.
But I think if anyone needs to get pregnant, you know who to go to.
Don't say that.
That seems a that
Jay,
seems,
We might need a little more context.
Sounds like a
I-
pregnant idea.
so.
No, I would have said, Dan, are you still with me?
Yeah. Okay, so that's a perfect segue. That's a perfect segue to our open
Yeah.
read. Pregnant
I
with
just
many,
wanna-
many
Dan,
people pregnant with
I
wisdom.
want to just, yeah, I want to just say one more thing.
Sure, go ahead, Kathy.
And it just came to me, so it's not something that was brewing, you know, it just came to me. There were times in Richard's reading where I laughed, and there were other times when I was a little gasp. These are reactions that I think readers would like to hear. Now we go on mute. Why? Because people have noise in the background, which interferes with the reader. But I'd like to conduct a little experiment on my first day as moderator here and see if we could stay off mute so that we can applaud and the reader can hear it, or you do laugh, or you do cry. The problem is if there's noise in your background, you have to mute yourself right away. And I think that if there's noise and someone doesn't stop the noise, then Dan will just put everyone on mute. Would you like to try that experiment and
Could I
see?
point something out about that?
Yeah,
Kathy?
yeah,
When you're not on mute, and if you're watching from the speaker view where the speaker's the whole screen, then whoever makes a noise suddenly they're on the screen.
Yeah.
And it's a little distracting.
Okay, so I think, Kathy, it's a good idea. Let's reflect on it, but I share the concern, and they have the scars from past experience where it kind of screwed things up. So
How about if the microphones are turned on as the person just when they end what they wrote?
yeah, it's all good ideas. Let's think about it. Let's think about it in terms of the next session. To try to action all that right now, I think is going to get us off track. So let's try it. You know, we can try for in a future session. We can think about it and reflect on it, but we're a little bit behind in time at this point. So let's think about this. The suggestion, you know, there's always that suggestion box. So if you have a particular idea, let's do this, and let's Kathy and I think about it. We maybe get some input from Deborah as well. Think about it as something we might try for the next session. Otherwise, we're going to get derailed. So, okay, so let's move on to the open read. And remember, again, new people, those of you who are veterans will remember this. You know, one poem, no more than 5 minutes. Keep your microphone muted. Wait to be called upon. And actually, as an error, I do make errors. Kathy will close the program. Okay, so we're going to announce the people in terms of groups of 3. So the first group of 3 that we have is Don Billings, followed by Vinny, followed by Marvin. So Don, you start with you, but you got to remember to turn on your mic.
Hi, I was going to do a different poem, but after listening to Richard, I want to do a medical poem that I wrote many years ago. Our daughter came down with an emergency one night, and I told her over the telephone, get to a hospital. And this is called Asleep in Recovery. My wife and I went to see her in the hospital in Brooklyn at about 11:30 at night. And I wrote this after our visit to the hospital. Asleep in recovery. Lying there so peaceful, as a little girl I knew, you're asleep in recovery, hooked up on monitors. In subdued light, the room is quiet, but for beep, beep, beep. And a dark screen shows your green patterns moving along, and blue numbers show your blood pressure 82/100, pulse 60 62, 62, 62. Temperature, and the IV bag hangs dripping with its clear tube taped to your unmoving wrist. We hear the constant rhythmic beep, 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 and it tells all is working. There's a gleam of light off the bed's side rails as I'm hearing the nurse tell us you have had morphine and you'll be moved to your room in an hour. You move your head and your eyes open a little. You give us words of recognition. We are relieved, and we leave to the rhythm of the beeping. Beep, beep, beep. That's just a memory poem. Most of my poems are just little things that I like to remember, you know, something that happened.
Thank you, Don. Well done. Very meaningful. Vinny, over to you.
She had
Okay.
an appendicitis.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was a great reading. Thank you, Richard, and congratulations again, Deborah. I'm going to read a ghazal. The name of this poem is called The Cry of the Gazelle. The epigraph: when an elder dies, a library burns down. Old African proverb. To God's ears from our mouths, the forgotten sin. They're burning down libraries in the South again. Face detuned fiddle, Nero plays as Caesar smolders, igniting Egyptian temples and ships in vain again. Alexandria burns, a copy of every book ever written dies, burnt in a fiery pain again. Papyrus blaze heats tiled bathhouses for a fortnight, knowledge lost amidst flame again, all burning, all consuming. Clock face frozen in place commemorates a refrain again. Blistering heat racing down the street, the cry of a gazelle. A dry crackle of sustain again. So much knowledge lost. Was it worth the cost? We hear you whimper your last on the fruited plain again. Old man, tell me quick before you vanish. If you know the secrets, please explain again. Is it as simple as sometimes you join and sometimes you should abstain again? For each crop to grow and for the farm to flourish, undoubtedly, there must be some rain again. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny. Well done. Marvin.
The title of my poem is timely appropriate because it's called Independence Day. Is that my son's hand I see floating to the stars, grabbing hold of flashing flowers and rainbow swirls, while down below amid the louts, who shook the night with brays and cherry bombs, a crimson pool soaked the street, soaked with buds and course. Are those my son's hands I see, steel enclosed behind his back, headlighted in the smoky night by a squad car's beam, the voice smoky too? Fireworks are illegal, son. Are those my son's arms I see, raised before the mugger's gun, raised to reach for books on library shelves, raised to reach beyond his father's grasp for a life of style and glitter, not found on July 4th nights, where danger prowls unhooded now, flaunting independence? Is that my son, unmoving now, hands and arms and eyes, and all still? Is that him I see unbuckled there, torn from the wreck of his birthday car, a hump on the old highway, while whizzing by the celebrants applaud their Independence Day?
Thank you, Marvin. Well done. Okay, the next three are Marguerite, JR, and then Deborah. So Marguerite, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you, Richard, for a great reading. I loved a lot of your lines. My poem is called By Fairy Dusting. Now, during 2020, fairy dusting was leaving like wine bottles and gifts on strangers' doorsteps. But one of my friends said, oh, you have a different kind of fairy dusting. So that's what inspired this poem. My fairy dusting. Fairy dust is like love. It creates magic whenever you give it away, unknown. Some spread fairy dust by leaving bottles of wine on strangers' doorsteps. My fairy dust my words left inside books for you on your stoop. Consider each metaphor a grand Merlot, each pun a Pinot Noir or a Pinot Grigio. Every fruit flavor a family member remembered, like Riesling or Zinfandel. Chardonnay is the caring, Sauvignon Blanc is the sharing, stories and gratefulness instead of sadness. Tempranillo, our spreading of happy tears. Cabernet Sauvignon celebrates each memory. Lambrusca is the love inside every glass. Sangiovese is my sip, a fortunate taste inside your world. Moscato, Myrino, both represent family, both a light, sparkling sweetness I enjoy writing for. Thank you.
Thank you for that sparkling sweetness, Marguerite. That was well done. Okay, JR. Woof, woof.
Woof, woof, yeah. They're actually quiet right now, which is quite surprising. Usually it's like, oh, wait, she turned off her mic. Let's bark. Anyway, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Richard. What a great reading. So I'm going to ask you, Richard, to play Poetry Roulette. So I ask you to pick a number from 1 to 24. Yeah, but
18.
18. Okay, thank you. I try to read lips, but it doesn't always work. Okay. Hour 18. These are 24 poems from a poetry marathon in the voice of dogs. Reasons you need dogs, at least 2. We replace vacuums for food that falls to the floor. We believe every word you say, and that is volumes. We love you even if you skip the hairdresser all year. We laugh at all your jokes, even the dumb ones. We make you laugh at our antics, even the dumb ones. We wake you before the alarm so you never oversleep. We give you a reason to exercise even if you don't want to. We are the best cuddlers and snugglers ever. We make you smile, and that helps you live longer. We knew you needed to be rescued. That's what we do. We'll help you be goofy, silly, and giggle as much as you can. We are a factory for kisses, 24/7 production. We never run out. We have magic compartments in our hearts to hold all your secrets. We'll protect you from danger and stress, but maybe not the bunnies in the yard. We let you be you. Who else does that for you? Thank you.
Thank you, JR. It's always good to hear from man's best friend. Okay, Deborah, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan and Kathy and Richard. Your reading was fantastic. You wrote so beautifully about very scientific and very sometimes graphic medical things. It was really, really wonderful. I had something else planned, but your reading reminded me that I had a poem called Radioactive about radiation. And I put in the chat the book that this came from. It uses a lot of found language from a book called Radioactive, Marie and Pierre Curie, A Tale of Love and Fallout by Lauren Redness. And I saw an exhibition of the artwork at the New York Public Library. And I bought the book and I wrote this poem, and most of the language comes from the book. Radioactive. Radium and her sister elements, grief and joy, are invisible facts viewed apart from the body. They glow like luminous orchids or patented dynamite. Marie learns the art of glass blowing, creates her own vessels to contain distillations. Doctors monitor and chart the heartbeat of fetuses, confirming that hearts break in utero. The patient's hair is yellow, verging on orange, sometimes pink. Her fingers and wrist reduced to bones and a wedding ring. The medium gained 6 kilos. The spectrum of death, a hot shadow across her face. U.S. Radium Corp employed women to paint watch dials with radium until their jaws glowed and their teeth disintegrated. An accident of this magnitude requires 2 or more failures. A telegram is delivered. No one can calculate the fallout. Stop. The flame contains 2 beautiful red bands, 1 line blue-green, and 2 faint violet. Radioactivity could be provoked rather than simply observed in the daughter elements. In the margins, she tracks the pain. The resilience of the human heart creates a mosaic of scars and imported copies. Radium makes things grow.
Wow.
Thank you, Deborah. Very moving.
Deborah, who was the author of the book?
Lauren Redness, I put it in the chat.
Thank you. Okay, the next 3 are Karen, Victoria, and Dan Kerr. Karen, over to you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Richard, for your tenure and for your beautiful poetry. This poem is called Sirocco. It always rains in March. I was told this by passers-by of this ancient city wrapped in their winter coats, hoods thrown over their heads, late morning streetlights still on, casting a yellow glow over wet streets. A deluge coming across the ocean from Africa. The Sirocco arrives early spring, pounds the pavement, its wind merciless on anything that moves or stands still. I make my way past shuttered groceries, occasional ATMs, the small backyards where lemon trees promise fruitful summers, yet the rain is relentless and not stopping. Just under an ancient stone archway, a wooden church door cracks open. Its warmth brings me out of the chill. I still remember how blue the walls were, silver and gold flourishes, the Madonna up front in white light, and the musicians below playing their instruments, the pounding beat of rain, of melodies crisscrossing, weaving in and out, soaring and falling, undulant sea overhead, below my feet on solid ground, anchoring my body in steady counts, with musicians smiling as if this could never end, only a pause here and there, while those blue walls enveloped me. Thank you.
Beautiful imagery, Karen. Thank you. Okay, Victoria.
Hi, thank you very much, Richard. And thank you very much for all the times that you've been there on the readings, and it's really appreciated. You know, things don't just happen. People make a lot of effort, you know, so it's very much appreciated. So anyway, this poem is called Paradise. We were shopping for homes in the Paradise Estates, driving along the peaceful, perfect streets, identical roof peaks casting serrated shadows on unblemished driveways, bright green rectangular lawns. When we came upon the scene, an old man lying on his back behind a corner house, 2 men on their knees, one sweating, pressing his hands rhythmically against the old man's chest, the other breathing every few moments into his mouth. A young cop stood close by, hands on his hips, looking down. An old woman waited anxiously at a slight distance, searching the face of the officer for a clue, a magic trick, a miracle. One hand up to her mouth in fear, the other holding the old man's hat. as if he might rise at any moment and need it back. Say, I'm fine, you're being silly, dear. As if the officer in his blue uniform might flash his youthful smile and conclude in an official sort of way, this is all a big mistake. Here is your husband. We give him back to you, perfect, peaceful, immortal. And today, here is this poem rising up in my mind like a shrill cicada, buried for 17 years, awakened and flexing its timbals, a strange memory of a day long forgotten, driving through the utopian streets of paradise.
Thank you, Victoria. Very moving. Okay, next poem. This one is dedicated to anybody who has had their life derailed by alcohol. And you all know the author of this poem and the person who's in the mirror. It's called Chicken Salad in the Sink. Here goes. New Year's Day began with a blissful dream. The wife that had left me had returned, and the faithful dog that stayed was by my side. Someone or something was knocking on my head as I tried to stay in my blissful dream. The pounding grew louder and louder. When I got out of bed, the faithful dog was there, but there was no wife to have and to hold. As I made my way to the bathroom, I noticed there was chicken salad in the sink. As I made my way to the toilet, I noticed there was chicken salad on the floor. Michael Jackson famously sang, "I'm looking at the man in the mirror." As I looked into the glass, I noticed my lips were blue, my hair was filled with blood, and there was a large bandage on my head. Then I remembered the wild New Year's Eve party, the blue whale drinks, and the champagne bottle that hit me in the head as the ball fell at Times Square. As I removed the bandage, I saw a gaping wound, and then I realized the chicken salad was vomit, and I needed medical attention now. The drive to the hospital was stressful, especially when I realized I was shaking and that I was followed by a police car. The doctor looked at my head. "There's nothing I can do. You should have come here for stitches last night. The jagged scar you'll have on your forehead is a reminder of this particular New Year's Eve." I thought to myself, things could not get much worse. At least I still had my faithful dog. After I made my way back home, I fell into a deep sleep and returned to my sweet dream. It was much more pleasant than the reality of my life this New Year's Day. Then there was a loud knock on the door, and my wife stood there, but she was shaking her head in disgust. "Just look at you," she said. I felt the deep shame of the blue lips, the dried blood in my hair, and the bandage on my head. After she said, "I'm here to take the dog," I went to the bathroom and I cried. As I looked in the mirror, Michael Jackson's lyrics came back to me. A willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart, and a washed out dream. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And now we've got a combination of three. We've got Joan, we've got Chip, and we've got Shu. So Joan, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you all for the wonderful poems. And Richard, your reading was just wonderful. And thank you for all the work you've done in this group. And thank you to everyone in this group for how welcoming you are, and to James Horn for inviting me. I'm going to share with you a poem from my book. It's actually the last one in the book, and I chose it for a particular verse, so but I hope there's something in it that speaks to you. So it's called Stepping Through My Doorway. It has become my way into a world of uncertainties, yet through its glass, yellow sunshine fills the hall each day. In early morning, though, my west-facing door once a month opens to a silver stream from the full round silver moon playing with treetops before daylight takes the stage. On those days before sun rises, I step out, filling my lungs with elixir of moonlight so I can breathe out dreams all my waking day. In brightness, there's noise of birds, animals, people. But in that last bit of darkness, moon and I commune. Sunlight warms, but also reveals worries, concerns. Yes, I love the sunshine, but these days I don't often step outside into the sun. It's that early morning time, alone with moonlight, when I can safely open up to the outside, to myself. That's it. Thank you.
Florence. Well done. Thank you. Okay, Chip, over to you.
Hey, thank you all. What a wonderful reading so far. Thanks for inviting me. This is entitled From a Child's Voice, Shame Not My Own. I was the littlest, the last of 5, really of 7 children. 2 I didn't know until I was grown with kids of my own. Okay, I digress. Quietly, I stood in line, on my face, fright for the ages, wide eyes, sidelong stare at my big brother and a fluttery ache in my belly. Yeah, I stood there in line, wearing my lucky yellow shirt, wrinkled, trembled sleeves, and bell bottoms shaking like a leaf outside, frozen perfectly still. There I stood, all the time wanting to run away and hide with my big brother at my side. I was 8, and this lineup was the routine when you did something wrong, like not doing your chores, like not doing what you're told to do, and especially like looking like you kind of want to talk back. Like, come on, I know our family was not the only one. Really, is there any reason to hit or to beat a child? Okay, I digress. 8 years old I was, lined up from the eldest to the youngest, me. After the speech, delivered almost as long as Sunday's morning sermon, way too lengthy, came the beckoning of the hand, pointing exactly where to stand. First, my eldest brother stood in the designated spot, stoic and still like an ironing board, flinching not, strong will. Painfully I watched as he, like a hungry crocodile, clenched his teeth as though his very pride was at stake, relentlessly way too long, casting bait to make, more and more blows to flow, harder and harder. Far too slow did the cheers choke behind the levee until he broke. His head did fall with nothing at all to say, feeling hurt, shame, and defeated. He walked away. Within finger's reach, one by one, I watched each of my siblings slowly walk from the line to the spot. I was 8. With a docile stare, her hand outstretched, without a sound, a single tear raced down. Taken by hand, firmly held, jerking whichever way. What? Nothing could we say. Okay. Leather belt, extension cord strap, diverse switches braided with care, struck my sister, who didn't break her docile stare. I was 8, one by one, I saw them walk off sniffling in gloom, alone to our shared double bunk bed single room. Like dark seas, I disappeared in memories of what I've been shown. I stood alone, holding my behind. I walked from the line to the spot I was told to stand. And like the rest of my siblings, I too slowly extended my hand. Thank you.
Okay, Chip, very, very moving.
Thank you.
Okay, Shu, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Such a wonderful day to enjoy and love every poem that we shared. So I post my poem on the chat so you can read. The title is Expectation. One expectation ceases. Hope is no longer necessary. When hope becomes superfluous, dreams are abandoned. Without dream, the heart withers. When the heart dies, pain is no longer pain. Thank you.
Thank you, Shu. Okay, so we've got one more person that signed up in chat, but we'll go around the group and see if there's anyone else who wants to read. Julian, over to you. You were the last name I saw in chat.
Hi.
Welcome.
Just a sec. This is called Moon Rising. Let me see whether I can find it. Give me a sec.
Julian, I'm going to give you a second to look, and I'm going to go around and see if, while we're waiting for you to find your poem, is there anyone else who wanted to read? And I see Claude. Okay, Claude, we'll put you down there. Okay, anyone else? Just wave your hand or just come off mute for a second. Okay, Julian, did you find the poem yet?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do Julian, and then we'll do Claude, and then we'll ask once more if anyone else wants to read. So Julian, over to you.
Moon Rising. 12 men stepped on you, bounced around a bit, planted some flags, stole some rocks, then left you alone for 51 years. In the interim, you pulled away the length of an average basketballer, an inch and a half yearly, a quiet escape perhaps. Backstepping for the three-pointer, a slow, imperceptible receding into the abyss of space. Until one night, we looked up and you were gone. No reality TV reveal moment, no walk of shame, no boardroom firing, no golden buzzer, no sinking spinning chairs, no early cowl acts, mid-performance. Only a stilling of the oceans, no longer lapping shores or hearts in waves. Our earthbound narcissism wobbling in shame, reducing you to a mere selfie bomber. The climate change chaos we ignited, now an explosive lunatic's reality. You grew tired of all the odes, the songs, the poems, the art, pin-cushioning your wrinkled visage, framing you on walls, imprisoned in musty galleries. So many merciless, misogynistic metaphors, strident, sterile similes, lock and cock cliches, like darts missing targets, a bullseye for dodgy, broken hearts. You left us because you had had enough and needed to go, clear your headspace, so to speak, social distancing against a virulent human race, putting necessary boundaries on the universe's growing menace, those ungrateful billionaires and their outsized egos, turning your face neither gracefully nor gently to the stars, your dark side mooning us forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Well done. And now, Claude.
Hi, everybody. This has been a great collection of readings. I just had a couple of comments, and then I'm going to read a short one. Marvin, Sandy, 4th of July, Asbury Park, Bruce Springsteen, Independence Day, great song and poetry for inspired by your poem. And morphine was used by the North in the Civil War, but the South didn't have it. They had to use whiskey and alcohol to kill the pain. Okay, so Paul Simon's new album, Psalms, Psalms,
Thank you. Well done. Okay. So now it's a pleasure to call back Richard for an encore. Richard?
So I thought I would read a poem that was really more lighthearted and on that note. So I've been working on a project for a while. It's going slowly, of writing a series of fantasy poems about an emergency room doctor. And hopefully I'll have a checkbook out of it in time. And this is one, and it's based upon the fact that I know people at the University of Pennsylvania who are working on using dogs to diagnose diabetic ketoacidosis and some cancers by sniffing the urine. So this is called Dr. Dog. I was doing triage that night, a quiet night, when he walked in the ED, a muscular man in a paisley shirt and jeans, dog on a leash, a big dog. I didn't recognize the breed. Service dog? Not really. There are no dogs allowed here. You'll want this one. Say a guy comes in with abdominal pain. Give Hunter the command, diagnose. He'll bark once for acute appendicitis, twice if it's ruptured, a growl for cholecystitis, a howl for diverticulitis. Hard to believe. Not really. He handed me his card. Larry Lawrence, MD, breeder. I was a surgeon, but that's another story. You in charge? And I am. How does Hunter do it? It's in the sweat. Each illness a different smell. I took skin swabs from my patients while still in practice, stored them, correlated smells with CT scans, discharge diagnoses. You've seen dogs sniffing for drugs at airports. Hunter takes things one step further. He doesn't make mistakes. Take a look at this positive predictive value. I'll leave him with you tonight. No charge. You can't go wrong. I'll be back in the morning. Thank you.
Well done, Richard. Well done.
Richard, is that really true? The dog can do that?
Yes.
Well, they're basically studying that now at the University of Pennsylvania, the hospital, University of Pennsylvania. You know, there is some definite evidence that dogs have amazing olfaction, but where that is now, I have no idea. This is totally fantasy, of course.
The only thing is they have to feed the dog estrogen first.
During the pandemic, I put it in a little chat, they actually had sniffing dogs picking up people who had COVID at the airport. I think it was in Sweden and a couple other countries.
Oh, I see. I heard that. I read the article. Looking at the article carefully, from a different eyes, scientific vantage point, it was interesting, but not yet believable. Anyway, this is total fantasy, and I have 6 fantasy poems. I'm trying to get about 15 I put together, but so I'm still working on it. Anyway, thank you. I enjoyed being here, certainly for the 2 years, and hope to be back, intermittently to share the time with you.
Okay, we'll take a slight little
Thank you.
deviation here. We try to include everybody, and Carol Finkel, I don't know if I missed it up front, but Carol, you came back to me and said you wanted
Yes.
to read as well. Go ahead.
Yes, please. Okay, we used to love to go for 4-mile walks. When we were in Spain, we walked 12 miles many of the days. I used to be young and nothing seemed impossible. We used to seek out different destinations for vacations. I used to have a wish list. Now I am very content. We walk each day, but have not exceeded 2 miles. I used to yearn for changes of scenery. Now we can do the same route or visit the same park, and as long as I'm walking with Jeff, I am happy. We used to find new restaurants to try. Now most of our meals are at home, and Jeff enjoys doing some of the cooking. He became the master of air fryer. I attribute the change to COVID, although thank goodness neither of us contracted it. Another cause was Jeff's retirement and the fact that he is not traveling. We learned that meals at home tasted better than those out, and we enjoyed using all the ingredients and controlling them. Jeff became part of the routine, and cooking together was as much fun as eating. Jeff suddenly was home long enough to really enjoy our garden and gets the same thrill when a plant survived the winter and came to life again. Jeff loves sailing. Why travel when all this is available close to home?
Thank you, Carol. Very timely. Okay, Kathy, over to you. And any last words, and also the introduction of the August poet.
So, first of all, this went extremely well today. I'm so thrilled and honored that Richard's with us one last time. Of course, you will be back intermittently, as you just said, Richard, so that's good. I have to just say a remarkable sort of observation about your poetry is that your experience in Bellevue and the city, and you've seen the bottom of things, the earthiness of some people's lives. And at the same time, the reverence you have for your parents, especially your mother, the way you have observed her and then just seem to revere her. It all makes you who you are. And what an extraordinary life you've had from one spectrum to the other. And you're a remarkable person, and then poetry on top of medicine. Really, hats off to you. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to say to you. And now I'm going to introduce Victoria Toomey, who's with us today. You still with us, Vic? You want to give us a wave?
Yes, I'm still here.
Hi, we've been listening to Victoria's poetry for a long time, coming here to our venue. And we look forward to her coming next month as our featured reader. She's just created a book called Glimpse, published in April of 2023. And it's going to be absolutely a thrill to listen to her tell her stories. So we look forward to that. And that will be the second Saturday. It's the first Saturday. I'm glad you all got the message, because Dan is going to Italy and he's our Zoomer. And so we adjusted for him, and back to second Saturdays for next month. See you then. Okay.